5 years after the breakup. Quincy is worth billions and has a beautiful fiancée. Someone mentioned me at the gathering. Lynn hasn't come to the gathering every year. What is she up to? Hehe, she's busy flirting with rich men on the plane. On the plane? Yeah, she's a flight attendant for a certain airline. I've seen her. You haven't seen that fawning smile on her face when she's serving wealthy people. Really, the flight attendant? She really still loves money, just like she did back then. Quincy, sitting in the center, squinted his eyes and clenched his fist. Flight attendant? Yes, Quincy, after all these years, you still haven't forgotten her? He held the hand of his fiancée beside him. The diamond on the girl's hand instantly dazzled everyone's eyes. I forgot to mention, my wedding is next month. Everyone remember to come and celebrate. Everyone immediately sent their congratulations. Only I, floating in the air, lowered my head. A year after my death. The class group organized a gathering. I heard that Quincy, whose status had already soared, would also be attending, and the class group was extremely lively. More than 30 active avatars. Only my avatar was gray, silent at the very bottom. Because I am already dead. I can no longer use any communication devices. In the empty room, the furnishings are still as they were in my lifetime, and on the table are the cancer medications I used while I was alive. On the day of the gathering, I floated to the venue. What a large private room, still in a 7-star hotel. I floated inside, looking left and right, and soon everyone had arrived. The last person came in. I held my breath. The tall, imposing figure with long legs was none other than Quincy. He was dressed in a low-key yet highly tasteful European custom brand. I was mesmerized. The next moment, a beautiful girl appeared at the door and linked her arm with his. Quincy, are these all your classmates? My breath suddenly caught. At the gathering, everyone was chatting and drinking, but no one was trying to get close to Quincy. Suddenly, someone glanced at the people at the gathering. Is Lynn the only one who didn't come? Heh, in these 5 years since graduation, she has been like a ghost. Who even knows about her? Quincy, such a successful new generation tech mogul, we occasionally see on television, is the most mysterious of them all. She must have married a rich man and become a wealthy lady. Everyone was talking at once. Until the entertainment committee member, who had been silent all along, took a sip of red wine. What a wealthy lady, more like a service-rich lady, working as a flight attendant on a certain airline, busy as a spinning top. The girl who is speaking is named Zara. She is also very beautiful. She married a somewhat wealthy boss. A year ago, I served her and her husband on a plane. Have you seen her? Everyone was suddenly curious. Hehe, has she become a flight attendant? This is quite a shortcut to getting close to wealthy people. She's quite quick-witted. Which airline is it? How come I haven't encountered it before? Zara uttered 2 words, Huashin. That airline is famous for its beautiful flight attendants and handsome male stewards. If I get the chance, I want to try this airline too. When it came to this topic, I silently looked at Quincy in the center, who remained silent, his expression solemn. The hand resting on the armrest was clenched so tightly that the veins stood out. The class monitor next to him glanced at his fist and immediately signaled everyone to stop talking. The monitor picked up the cup in front of him and toasted Quincy. Quincy, some people are not worth it, not worth remembering. Quincy didn't move. He sat there, tall and broad, as if for a moment, he was frozen. This was too unusual. Everyone else didn't dare to breathe. Beside him, the beautiful girl looked a bit embarrassed and gently held his hand. A few seconds later, he came to his senses. He picked up his glass and lightly clinked it with the class monitors. I forgot so soon. He took a sip of wine and held the girl's hand with his other hand. There's some good news I haven't mentioned. Next month, I'm holding a wedding, and everyone is welcome to come and celebrate. In the evening, I was wandering around the streets. It wasn't until I was really tired that I drifted back home. There was a light on in the room, and I was curious. It was Linda, my best friend in life. She filled a basin with water to clean my room, and even charged my old phone. She silently did everything, but my eyes were filled with bitterness. Suddenly, my phone dinged a few times. She put down the mop and went over to pick up my phone. It was the class group chat. Quincy, what date is the wedding banquet? Where will it be held? Also, someone posted a photo of Quincy and Bella sitting together at the gathering. Look, what a perfect pair, a talented man and a beautiful woman. Compared to that shallow, superficial person from back then, they are 1,000 times, 10,000 times better. With a bang. Linda's hand trembled, and the phone fell to the ground. She suddenly crouched down, covering her face and crying. She opened my photo, gently touching my smiling face. Fool, she's getting married, you know? It's a shame you were still thinking of his name before you died. Linda turned off her phone and continued cleaning. When leaving, this time, she took my phone from when I was alive. I was confused. I followed Linda to her home. It's really hard to endure when a person is guarding an empty house. Usually, the happiest moment for me is when Linda comes once a month to charge my phone. That way, any updates on my phone will pop up, and I can see them. I find it quite interesting. Even in death, I can still catch up on the news. Linda and I are both poor. She is in a worse situation than I am. She had a daughter out of wedlock who was born with a heart condition. She put down her phone and stayed with her daughter until she fell asleep. I can't sleep. I floated around the room a few times, and finally, my phone lit up. I floated over, it was my phone. It is a web news article, and I was startled when I saw the headline. The executive president of Yunsheng Technology was in a car accident late at night, crashing into a guardrail. Quincy is the CEO of Yunsheng Technology. The incident occurred on Hongqiao Road. Was he injured? I couldn't care less and immediately floated towards Hongqiao Road. When I arrived, sure enough, a section of the road was blocked off, surrounded by a crowd. There was also a damaged Maybach with its front end smashed. My heart raced as I immediately floated into the crowd, searching for Quincy's figure. There was no sign of Quincy among the circle of people, and I was going frantic. Quincy, your hand is injured, I'll take you to the hospital. At the sound, I turned around sharply and saw Quincy sitting by the side of the road. His arms hung down, blood dripping from the back of his hand. My heart ached at the sight. He said nothing and silently got into the vehicle that had come to pick him up. The hospital, the doctor suggested a few days of hospitalization for observation. Quincy refused and left the hospital after just a bandage. The driver is driving the car. Quincy, your health is precious, you should at least have a full checkup. He rubbed his temples and leaned against the cushion. At the accident scene, who was handling it? It was Assistant Wei. Quincy didn't speak again, seemingly exhausted, leaning back in the chair with his eyes closed, resting. The car drove into the hillside villa. The gate opened automatically, and the lights of the villa turned on one by one. Quincy entered the room. I looked around at the furnishings. The once well-known poor boy had now become the unattainable Quincy. You go ahead. The driver, however, felt a bit uneasy. Quincy, something's not right with you. Did something happen at the class reunion? Those close to Quincy vaguely knew that he had gone through a difficult romantic experience. The top student in school had once been dumped by a girl, and he was heartbroken, struggling for a year. Quincy shot him a glance. The driver immediately took the hint and left. I spent the whole night in Quincy's villa. He leaned back on the sofa to rest. I was right beside him, crouching next to him. Unfortunately, he couldn't feel me. Not only did he not notice me, but he also didn't hear Bella's call. Fortunately, his villa is quite warm. He sat on the sofa all night, so he wouldn't catch a cold. Daylight. He opened his eyes, glanced at the time on his phone, then set it down to wash up. I wondered, didn't he see Bella's call? But after a second or two, I realized that it was just dawn, and Bella should still be sleeping at this hour. After arriving at the company, Quincy dove into his work, handling 50 reports in the morning. At noon, he opened his phone and saw that many classmates had sent their concerns. They must have seen yesterday's news. He replied to the class monitor's message and put down his phone. The secretary came in. "Quincy, book the tickets to Europe, I need to do it now." His pen paused. "Before going to Europe, isn't there a trip to the south?" The secretary nodded. "The tickets for the day after tomorrow are already booked." He suddenly raised his head. "Which airline?" The secretary was momentarily taken aback, but quickly reported, "It's Hainan Airlines." Quincy suddenly paused for a moment and said, "Change it." "Quincy, do we need to adjust the timing? Change the airline?" The secretary was even more stunned. "Which one do you need to change to?" Quincy pondered for a moment. I looked at him, the pen he was holding seemed to be slightly crushed. "Huaxin Airlines." The secretary was surprised. But she immediately took the tablet and began to modify the flight ticket. "Quincy, it's booked, first class, seat 1. Quincy remained silent. The secretary tactfully exited. The office returned to silence, and I looked at Quincy in astonishment. "Huaxin Airlines? The airline I worked for in my lifetime, did he want to see me?" But I immediately shook my head vigorously. Impossible. Even if it was because of me, he probably just wanted to see how miserable I had become. Or maybe he wanted to say, "Lynn, aren't you with a rich second generation? Out here working as a waitress?" Quincy has always been a gentleman. He shouldn't have said that. But back then, in front of him, I took someone else's hand and trampled him into the mud. In broad daylight, his eyes were filled with red blood vessels, frighteningly red, as if he wished he could strangle me, this wicked woman. He couldn't say it to others, but saying it to me, his former girlfriend who had abandoned him, was completely justified. 2 days later, Quincy set off for the south and returned from the south, both on Huaxin's flights. The flight attendants on both journeys were not me. His gaze was very profound. He even got up from first class to take a trip to economy class and business class. Among the flight attendants on duty, he didn't spot me. He was clearly disappointed. I float in the air and watch, feeling a sense of regret. After the breakup, the reason I chose to become a flight attendant was that I felt it was impossible for me to see Quincy again. But I can't control my heart at all. I always hope that we can meet again, that I can catch a glimpse of him once more in the vast sea of people. I heard that he is very successful now. Successful people mostly fly all over the country, and Quincy should be no exception. So I decisively chose a large domestic airline and became a flight attendant. Everything can be troublesome. In the 3 years I flew, Quincy never appeared even once. Now, I finally understand that he held a platinum card from another major airline. Generally, when traveling, one tends to stick to a specific airline. Regret is like the clouds in the sky, blocking my soul, unable to calm down for a long time. During the flight, the chief attendant asked Quincy several times, striving for perfection in service, hoping to retain this tycoon for his next choice of Huaxin. I didn't go home either. I followed Quincy wherever he went. That day, he returned to the office after the meeting. There were several messages in the group chat. He intended to swipe past them, but accidentally clicked on one. "I just got off the flight from Huaxin, but I didn't see Lynn." I checked my previous flights, also from Huaxin, and among the several flight attendants, I didn't see Lynn either. Someone tagged Zara. "Zara, you weren't lying to us last time, were you?" "Zara, am I lying to you? Am I that bored? I'm sure she's at Huaxin Airlines, maybe she's just not on the flight you took. There is also that possibility. She might have resigned. Humph, it's a good thing she didn't run into me, otherwise I wouldn't have given her a good face. In our class, she's the only one with average grades and a bad character." I bit my lip. Everyone's prejudice against me has always been deeply rooted. At first, when I pursued Quincy with great fanfare, everyone was skeptical, thinking it was just a rich girl's game, merely for fun. However, we seriously dated for 3 years, and people began to see me in a different light, believing I was sincere. But just then, I coldly proposed a breakup, leaving everyone astonished. The always aloof academic overachiever Quincy was almost brought to a standstill. I was truly nailed to the shame pillar of the wicked woman. Amidst a wave of condemnation, suddenly someone said, "But have you noticed that Lynn's profile picture has been grayed out for a year? Does no one really know about her current situation? After all, we were classmates, let's at least accumulate some virtue in our words." The last time I saw a friend's profile picture grayed out for half a year, I asked and found out that they had already passed away. The group fell silent. I instantly looked at Quincy. He was holding his phone, his knuckles turning white. After a while, the class monitor said, "Don't say anything ominous. Although we haven't seen Sue for a long time, he must be healthy and well. Don't curse him randomly." In the afternoon, Quincy wore a stern expression, and several department managers had been reprimanded by him. After leaving the office, everyone wiped the sweat from their foreheads. What happened to Quincy? Yeah, we didn't make any mistakes at work. Don't say that, Quincy has high expectations of us, maybe even higher than we think. Everyone left looking dejected. After work, Quincy stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, a slant of sunlight streaming into the large window, stretching his shadow. I looked at him from behind and felt the deep loneliness emanating from him. Somehow, I feel that Quincy's feelings for Bella are not intense enough. Bella is a young lady from a prominent family, perhaps, more than love, this is about the union of two great families. The assistant stood behind him and, after a long while, cautiously spoke up. "Quincy, the bridal center has sent 5 venue layout designs for you to choose from." The man remained silent. The assistant broke out in a cold sweat and stammered, "I'll just take it to Bella then, let Bella choose." A seaside wedding, with blue and white as the color scheme, featuring irises as the main flowers at the venue. Assistant Zhang's lips parted in disbelief. By the sea? Does Bella know? A tall, dark shadow suddenly turned to the side, cold and eerie. The assistant remained silent and immediately went to take care of it. Quincy was dressed in all black today, turning to the side, in a place where the light couldn't reach, chillingly eerie. The intertwining of various emotions made my heart heavy, I couldn't take it anymore. It floated away. Is he going to hold a wedding by the sea? It should be very romantic. My heart felt suffocated and anxious, I replied to Linda. She was staring at the news on TV, lost in thought. The news is reporting that the CEO of Yunsheng has booked a beach to hold a highly publicized beach wedding with Miss Tang. Mommy, don't cry. Anna suddenly raised her hand and wiped Linda's cheek. Linda quickly turned to the side and wiped her face clean. Mommy, don't cry. Have you finished your homework? Yet Anna still stared blankly at Linda. Mommy, I haven't seen Aunt Lynn in a long time. Isn't she Mommy's best friend? After Anna finished speaking, Linda's tears, which had just stopped, began to flow again. She squatted down and tightly hugged Anna. Mommy, what's wrong? For a full minute, Linda got up and took Anna's hand. Come on, Mommy will take you to meet the most important person in Aunt Lynn's life, okay? The most important? Anna seemed not to understand. But Linda appeared to have made a certain decision, putting a coat on Anna and leading her out the door. I was astonished. What does Linda want to do? The most important person he mentioned, it can't be that he's going to see Quincy, right? Tell him the fact that I am already dead. I hurriedly tried to stop her, but my body was just a wisp of soul, passing through her. Sure enough, I wasn't wrong. She took a taxi to the hillside villa and waited at the door with Anna. Mommy, it's so big inside. There's even a soccer field. Anna curiously pried at the iron gate. At that moment, the gate was illuminated by blinding headlights, and a brand new Maybach drove up to the entrance. The gate opened automatically, and the car was about to drive in. Linda pulled Anna and blocked the front of the car. The car came to a sudden stop. The driver got out, looking annoyed. Linda spoke first. Is Quincy in the car? I'm Lynn's friend, and I have a few words to say to him. The driver was taken aback for a moment, sizing up Linda, who was dressed in street vendor clothes. Just as he turned back, Quincy in the back seat rolled down the window. What's the matter? Quincy, she said, she is Lynn's friend. After a minute of stalemate, Quincy got out of the car. Are you her friend? Linda had clearly prepared herself mentally for this moment, but when Quincy got out of the car, she was still intimidated by his presence and nodded. Quincy let out a cold snort. Didn't she find a wealthy second-generation factory owner? Why is she making friends among the poor? She hates me to the bone, and Quincy shows no mercy to my friends either. I took a deep breath, really wanting to cover Quincy's mouth. Linda frowned and was no longer polite. I understood her. She could be tough when needed, and she could be tough. Mr. Quincy really doesn't need to be so sarcastic. Since she brought up the breakup, aren't you getting married now? Quincy seemed to have heard a huge joke, his expression cold and chilling. It's been 5 years since we broke up, and I can't get married? Your friend is quite ridiculous, she must have sent you here. What does she want from me, to borrow money? Or is she regretting it and wants to come back to ask me to get back together? Linda was stunned. Quincy suddenly waved, and a powerful Tibetan Mastiff ran to his side. The solid black Mastiff immediately scared Anna, who hid away. Mommy, I'm scared. Quincy tightened his grip on the rope and glanced at the two people across from him. Go back and tell her, she must never appear in my vicinity, or else this Tibetan Mastiff of mine is a carnivore, and I fear I won't be able to resist letting it loose to tear her flesh and drink her blood. Quincy, are the words you said something that a warm-hearted person could say? Quincy's expression grew colder. Are you really her friend? If so, didn't you hear her talk about how she humiliated me back then? Linda bit her lip, feeling a bit uncertain. She said she was very sorry for you and has cried countless nights. Cry? If a few drops of tears could compare to the 3 broken ribs I suffered, could it compare to me kneeling and begging her not to break up? Is that okay? That day was a big deal. It wasn't something that could be resolved just by shedding a few tears. Quincy's expression turned fierce again. Sweet potato, send off the guests. The Tibetan Mastiff immediately bared its fangs, and Anna instantly cried out. Linda was also frightened and quickly retreated while holding Anna. The Tibetan Mastiff continued to chase. I was anxiously circling in the sky. Quincy, please don't scare them, I'm begging you. Anna's heart has just been treated, there can't be any accidents. Until they chased 20 meters away, at the moment the Tibetan Mastiff was about to bite Linda, Quincy finally spoke. Sweet potato. The Tibetan Mastiff returned to his side, and he patted its head. The two imposing figures stepped forward together into the gate. Quincy, you can actually rest assured, Lynn will never come looking for you again. She will never be able to. Quincy, standing at the center axis of the gate, paused for a moment. He squinted his eyes and tilted his head. What did you say? In your world, she let you down, perhaps she had her reasons, but it doesn't matter anymore. Lynn is right, a missed opportunity is a missed opportunity, no explanations needed. When she said she wanted to break up, you both lost each other forever. I think that if she knew I came to see you, she would definitely want me to convey her blessings to you. Happy wedding. In the end, Linda still didn't mention the news of my passing and left with Anna. That night, Quincy suddenly unleashed a violent punch, smashing it against the glass. Until his hand was a bloody mess. I was stunned. The butler brought the medicine box and kicked it open. Go out. I don't know how long it had been when someone angrily shouted, Quincy, have you lost your mind? Are you going to lose your hand too? I turned around sharply to see an old man with silver hair walking in. Quincy's back stiffened, and he stopped his self-torturing actions. Grandpa, why did you come over? Hehe, why did you come? I heard that dead girl's friend came to find you. Have you forgotten how she humiliated you 5 years ago? Hearing news of her might make you lose control again. Quincy pressed his forehead, blood dripping from the back of his hand. Grandpa, I can't forget her, I will never forget her in this lifetime. I floated back 2 steps. Quincy said he had never forgotten me. Damn it, Bella is such a good girl, you don't love her properly, and you're still bringing up that dead girl. Are you trying to drive me crazy? Alright, this matter is not to be mentioned again. Since you've decided to have a wedding, I can finally relax. If you and Bella can have a child soon after the wedding, I will be satisfied. Quincy fell silent, just when no one understood. He suddenly turned his head. Grandpa, why do you keep calling her that dead girl? Do you hate her? What do you mean? She hurt you, and I can't even scold her a little? Quincy's eyes suddenly turned very dark and fixed on Kenny. 6 years ago, one of the wealthy families in the city, the Sue family, went bankrupt. Those who could went to prison, and those who couldn't committed suicide. It is said that only one daughter was left unharmed, and their bankruptcy was allegedly orchestrated by someone powerful behind the scenes. Kenny's face suddenly twitched. Quincy, what do you mean by that? I was also shocked. Quincy lowered his head. The Sue family went bankrupt, it must be your doing. Kenny remained silent for a long time, which was an acknowledgement. You should rest early, I'm going back to the old house. Kenny is gone. I floated out and chased for a while. Old man, the young master isn't suspicious about anything, is he? Humph, what's the use? Lynn is dead, isn't she? The car door closed, and the vehicle drove away. I heard the last sentence. The young master would never have thought that, at the beginning, Lynn did not fall in love with someone else, but rather that Lynn discovered she had fallen in love with the grandson of her enemy. The fact is this. My surname is Sue, and this surname is not simple. My parents were not just somewhat wealthy, but particularly rich. No classmate knows my true identity. Because when I was young, I experienced a kidnapping case, and the kidnappers extorted my dad. After being rescued, I had been hiding my identity as the daughter of the Sue family. When I was in college, I was pursuing Quincy, but he was really quite simple at that time, coming from a single-parent family and living with his mother. It was later that Kenny found him and told him that he was actually the illegitimate son of the Hehe family. His biological father and older brother had died in a car accident, and the Hehe family's company was now to be handed over to him. I couldn't believe it. At that time, my family had just gone bankrupt, and it was the old man Hehe who had designed our bankruptcy. My parents committed suicide, lying in the bathtub covered in blood. Old Mr. Hehe found me. I stepped forward to hit him. He coldly ordered his bodyguards to pull me away. You think I am your enemy? I tell you, it was your father who harmed my son and grandson first, I am avenging them. I don't believe it, I said he was lying. He presented a lot of evidence. He told me that my dad deliberately lured his son Kerr into using drugs and got him addicted. Kerr took his family of 3 on a trip, but during the drive, he succumbed to his drug addiction, causing the car to lose control, and they all perished at the bottom of the sea. In order to take revenge, he allied with overseas capital and launched an assault on our family's assets. My entire life has been thrown into chaos. Returning to school again, I resolutely broke up with Quincy, not wanting to see him ever again. At first, I clumsily pursued him for a whole year before he was moved by me. But our relationship was truly sweet, truly happy. A person as ambitious as he is, the moment he agreed to date me, he truly liked me, his love was very pure and sincere. When I wanted to break up, he was dumbfounded. He neither agreed nor said that I was definitely throwing a tantrum. He must have done something wrong to make me angry and begged me to tell him so he could fix it immediately. Quincy doesn't know that I am a child of the Sue family. The only thing he understands is that from my daily life, he knows my family background should be quite good. He said he would work hard, earn a lot of money, and then come to propose to my father. He never knew the deeper reasons. Compared to the pain of losing a loved one, his entanglement only leaves me in deep distress. I was resolute in my attitude, even hiring an actor to play my new boyfriend. Quincy was completely devastated. In a deserted corner, he knelt down with a thud and hugged my leg. Lynn, you're lying to me, aren't you? So soon, how could you like someone else? I don't believe it. I just said. Quincy, my boyfriend has come to pick me up, behave yourself. I hadn't been to school for a long time. Later, when I returned to school to collect my graduation certificate, I heard that he had been taken back to the Hehe family. I didn't see him, I took my graduation certificate and left. My soul seems to have thinned. Is it about to dissipate? At the charity banquet. I followed Quincy, already feeling so tired. I thought, this should be the last night I spend by his side. Quincy, dressed in a well-tailored suit, was always surrounded by people. When he first appeared in high society, a few executives thought that the Hehe family was in a transitional phase and attempted to make moves on their business, but soon, Quincy retaliated against them. Quincy's bones have always been very hard, no one can snatch food from his mouth. Quincy. This voice? I turned my head, and it was actually Sue Wen, the president of Huaxin Airlines. During the group's unified training, I had heard him speak a few times, and his voice was particularly deep. What I didn't expect was that the person next to him was actually my former chief attendant. Quincy was about to leave when he suddenly stopped and clinked his glass with the other person. Noah. Noah was surprised, he didn't expect Quincy to show him such respect. Just now, several executives were intimidated by his bad luck. Quincy, I have a Tang Dynasty painting of mountain birds, I wonder if you are interested. If you are, I can take you to the lounge to have a look. Quincy politely declined, saying he was not interested in such things. He had a deeper brow. Noah, I have a friend who is said to work at Huaxin, I wanted to ask you about it. Which executive or vice president is Quincy's friend at Huaxin? Please let me know, and I will make the arrangements. Quincy interrupted him. It was a flight attendant. What? Noah was completely stunned. Immediately, he thought of something and quickly smiled, saying, Quincy, please go ahead. Coincidentally, my companion today is our company's most outstanding flight attendant, who has been flying for 20 years. There isn't a single flight attendant she doesn't know. Quincy then glanced at the elegant flight attendant, Xiao Shuiyun. Sister Xiao also smiled and waited. Quincy slowly uttered 2 words. Lynn. Hearing my name, my soul trembled, he was really asking about me. Sister Xiao, however, shuddered violently and widened her eyes. Quincy noticed something unusual in Sister Xiao's eyes. What's wrong? It was indeed quite a coincidence. When I was at the airline, Sister Xiao took good care of me. She was also aware that I resigned due to stomach cancer. Even when I was so thin in the hospital that I looked like a different person, she came to see me and cried for a while, holding me with pity. Sister Xiao's voice trembled. Quincy, what is your relationship with Lynn? How do you know each other? Quincy stared at her. It sounds like you know her well? Sister Xiao held the wine glass, but couldn't stop trembling. Quincy frowned. Noah next to him was very anxious, clearly taking this as an opportunity to please Quincy. Don't keep us in suspense, Quincy appreciates her, hurry and have her take a taxi to the banquet. Sister Xiao interrupted with a trembling voice. It's impossible, she can't come. Noah, what does it mean? Is she in control of the flight? Quincy's brows furrowed even deeper, showing some impatience. Noah was very anxious. Sister Xiao took a deep breath. A year ago, she had resigned. Quincy suddenly became patient. Resigned? Do you know where she went after she resigned? Sister Xiao's eyes instantly turned red, and she shook her head. She didn't go anywhere, she died, suffering from stomach cancer, the cancer cells spread, and she passed away on July 2nd of last year. What did you say? Suddenly, with a bang, the sound of a wine glass hitting the ground. Everyone at the venue turned to look. I stared in shock at Quincy. He lost control and grabbed Sister Zhao's shoulder. Are you joking? You're joking with me. Do you know how many lives you have? Sister Zhao winced in pain, but still did not change her words, even recalling something. She exclaimed. In her dying moments, whose name was she always murmuring? So, was she always murmuring Quincy's? What? Quincy immediately let go. His body suddenly took 2 steps back. The fact that I was dead, Quincy finally knew. 10 o'clock in the evening. Sister Zhao brought him to the house I lived in before my death. Linda arrived and saw the 2 of them blocking the door. You too? Sister Zhao knew Linda and nodded. Open the door. Linda opened the door. Quincy walked in. He was still so tall, yet at this moment, I felt he seemed pitifully thin. He walked into my bedroom, opened a drawer, and flipped through an album. As he opened the album, he suddenly hugged it and began to cry. The album was bought during our relationship, filled with memories of our love. Linda stood quietly at the door, took her phone out of her bag, placed it beside him, and then exited the room. He picked up my phone and unlocked it. The screensaver was a photo of his back. He opened the notes, where I had written a series of cancer-fighting diaries. February 1st, 2019. It hurts so much. If Quincy were here, it would be so good. He would definitely be worried sick, holding me and crying in desperation. But he won't show up anymore. Even when I wasn't sick, I flew the same route for 3 years and never saw him once. He probably doesn't want to see me. February 7th, woo-woo, it really hurts. I have to go see Mom and Dad now. The only one I care about in this world is Quincy. I wonder if he has already forgotten me after we broke up 4 years ago. On March 6th, I miss the clear soup noodles outside the campus, especially reminiscing about the times we were together, eating noodles together. April 10th, why does fate play tricks on people, and why is Quincy a child of the He family? If not, would we be together? No, I'm about to die. Separation is for the best, otherwise he will definitely be sad. On May 13th, my body really couldn't take it anymore. The pain was so intense that I wanted to end my own life. I begged the doctor to give me a pain relief pump. On June 1st, I decided to sell my corneas before I die, and use the money to treat Anna's heart. Her life is still long, and she must grow up healthy and strong. On June 30th, today Sister Zhao came to see me. She said that when I was asleep, I kept calling out someone's name. Unfortunately, she listened very carefully but still couldn't hear it clearly. She was very curious and asked if it was the person I had a crush on. I didn't say anything, but I actually wanted to correct her. It wasn't someone I had a crush on, but rather someone we both liked at one point. On July 1st, I have a premonition that I will soon say goodbye. I really want to see Quincy one more time, but never mind, I'm so thin now, just skin and bones, I don't want to scare him. What if he hasn't forgotten me? He would surely be heartbroken. How could he possibly not have forgotten me? I said such hurtful things, he must have forgotten me long ago. But it's okay, I'll just pretend that he hasn't forgotten me. July 2nd, goodbye, this world, I'm going to find Mom and Dad, my friends don't cry, I'm saying goodbye to pain. Quincy put down the phone, raised his trembling hand, and covered his crimson, moist eyes. The old house. Quincy, who had been absent for half a month, sat across from Kenny. You already know? So, you don't plan to get married after all? Quincy hung her head, lacking any spirit. It can't happen anymore, she's no longer in this world, who can I be with? What are you talking about? Bella is not waiting for you properly? He raised his head but only stared blankly out the window. Grandpa, I never intended to marry Bella, the wedding is for me and Lynn. I've already planned it all out. If she doesn't show up before the wedding, I'll tie her up and bring her to the venue to be my bride. Even if she hates me, I will make her suffer alongside me. What did you say? No wonder, Bella said, you didn't even ask for her opinion, you unfilial descendant. Kenny was ultimately furious, raising his cane and striking him heavily. Your family caused the death of your biological father, your brother, How can you say such a thing as marrying her? You are so unfilial. Father? If they hadn't had the car accident, would you have come to get me? I graduated from college at 21, and my mom told me since I was little that I didn't have a father. As for the so-called father, have I ever seen him in person apart from his posthumous photo? Grandpa, you are wrong. I have no father, and I have no brother. Now, I also know that, in fact, I have no grandpa. Quincy suddenly threw out a stack of documents. The so-called father, seeking excitement, seduced her secretary, who is my mother. You were afraid of unrest at home, so you immediately sent my mother away, threatening her never to think of anything related to the He family, or else you had plenty of ways to make her disappear. Even though she later gave birth to me and had the bloodline of the He family, you already have a grandson and look down on me, this illegitimate child. You even see me as a ticking time bomb, sending people to monitor us and not allowing us to make any moves. Quincy got up. Grandpa, take good care of yourself and strive to live to 100 years. Kenny extended his aged hand, as if he felt he was about to lose something. Quincy, don't go. But the one who was leaving didn't look back. 3 years later. My grave was suddenly pried open. I was taken aback. But many people placed a sleeping person next to me. I looked at his sleeping face and cried uncontrollably. It's Quincy. Quincy, wake up quickly, don't sleep anymore, they're going to bury you. I cried so hard that it felt like the sky was falling, but those who were carrying the coffin didn't hear a thing. Quincy, you fool, I beg you, wake up quickly. You can't die, you have to live well for me. Suddenly, a wisp of a soul sat up beside me and embraced me, saying, Fool, I'm tired of living, can't I just sleep? I looked at him in surprise. Then immediately shook my head. No, you must hurry back to life. He let go of me, propped himself up on his arm, and lay down, looking at the sky. There's no going back, so you get to have me, such a handsome ghost. After saying that, he even raised an eyebrow at me. Much later. My anger finally subsided a little. Quincy, you're dead, what about your grandfather and your mother? He sighed. They're all dead. I was stunned. How is that possible? He let out a cold laugh. My grandfather is already 90 years old, do you still expect him to live to 100? He's been relying on various medications to stay alive for a long time. What about your mother? He rolled his eyes. Don't you ever ask about me? After I returned home for a year, she passed away in sorrow. I lowered my head. After a long time, I finally asked, how did the He family's company handle it? He crossed his legs. It's hard work to leave it to the country. All right, I look up at the stars. He pulled me down to lie together. Wife, lie in my arms and watch. I tilted my head, don't you look at the stars? The stars are so beautiful tonight. He smiled a little and pinched my cheek. Compared to my wife is still more beautiful.